So Red, I wanted to ask you about your time in the movement and basically disengaging. What do you think were some of the very first seeds that were planted or instances that you can remember specifically that might have led to you reconsidering your choice of being in the movement?
You know, there are many seeds that were planted over time, but one of the more prominent ones that sticks out, and it's one that I haven't really spoken out too much about. Why? Sometimes I just simply forget that part happened, you know. Um, but it was in 2004 at the Lincoln, Nebraska, the state capitol steps. Was my very first major rally, and I had been invited to speak, which was at that time was a huge honor. I mean, here's a essentially a low level foot soldier, if you will, getting asked to speak at a major rally. I was like, holy shit, you know. I mean, that really put me on cloud nine at that moment. You know, I was, but you know, from what I recall, we had been outside pretty near all day, and it was not a cold day by any means. It was rather hot. And I remember turning to go up the steps to do whatever, and I remember kind of just kneeling down because I was exhausted and I was hot, I was tired, adrenaline dump like crazy. You know, I think you know how that is. You know, you get so amped up, and all of a sudden it drains you. You know, and the state trooper, who was a black man, helped me up and helped me to a shady place where I could sit back and recline a little bit, you know, and get some cold water. And I'm thanking him for doing this. You know, that was one of the things I learned early on in the movement. Even if it is our opposition, always be respectful. Unless that line was crossed, of course, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. But anyway, so I'm thanking him, and he looks me right in the eyes and he goes, "Young man, you're better than this. You know that, right?" And I looked at him. I said, "You know, I'm just going to simply say thank you for helping me get some water. You got a job to do just like I do. Thank you." And I kind of left it at that because obviously I wasn't going to challenge the guy. I mean, here's an armed law enforcement officer, and he was a little bit bigger than I was, and didn't feel like getting thrown into slammers that day, you know. But you know, that was definitely a moment of afterwards. It was like, shit, the hell did he mean by that? You know, and it took a good number of years for it to finally click. But I definitely think that was something that played into me opening up and seeing the wrong in what I was doing and what I was promoting.
Do you think like and this is that's a pretty I mean that's a great example, and I think in a lot of people coming from all different sides looking at a situation like that, I want to paint a picture here because I was at the rally too.
Yeah,
It was a Nazi rally, all right? So there's a
right.
black officer that's showing a little bit of humanity to somebody that he saw that needed a glass of water and treated you with kindness, and
Right.
that planted that seed. And I think that that says a whole lot. It really does.
Absolutely. That situation at any other time could have been much more dangerous for all parties involved. Um, in my time in the movement, I had run-ins with law enforcement, and some of them were petty. And what I mean by that is I flew a swastika flag for the NSM flag from my pickup truck, from the bed of my truck, and I get pulled over constantly for it. You know, and they try to say, "Well, you're obstructing your view," and you know, of course, I'm throwing right back at their faces what the law stated and whatnot. You know, of course, they didn't like that shit, and I'll never forget the one time that I actually mouthed off to the cop, and I met the tail end of his cop car. Uh, Rather hard. It was he was very unapologetic and unforgiving. It was a white cop nonetheless, and in my head at the time, I'm like, dude, what the fuck, you know? But at the same, now looking back at it, it's like, well, shit, no wonder he did that to me. I was being a dick. You know, I mean, I was I was really laying it on and egging him on. That typical 10 foot tall and bulletproof mentality of, well, you ain't nothing without your badge and gun, and he offered to take it all off and go round and round with me. And I'm like, once I met the trunk of the cop car, man, I knew I had to shut up, because it was like, yeah, I'm gonna get hurt. Because at the time I was maybe a buck 87 soaking wet, so I wasn't exactly the biggest guy in the world, but um, I think, and I can speak for myself and possibly others. And Jeff, I'll be asking this question to you. When I first got out, I struggled. You definitely build a camaraderie. You definitely you make those connections that where it's basically a second family, right? And I know that was one thing that I struggled with for a good number of years when I first left the movement was, man, I could just easily go back just to a different faction or to a different branch, to a different organization, whatever, and get that back. Ultimately I found something to fill that void, and that's, was through firefighting and other events and people that I started getting to know. So has that been a challenge, or has that thought ever crossed your mind as you transitioned out of the movement into speaking out against
Well, you're right. It's definitely a challenge getting out, and the trajectory there is that basically your entire support network, everyone, just about everybody, and it's not just in my own story, but in it's pretty common for just about all of
right?
us that have been in these kind of extremist movements, whether it's far right, far left, religious extremism. It operates so much. I didn't like it at the time when
Right.
I was in the movement, when people would say it's very cult like, and it's very much cult like, and
Right.
but in that sense, excuse me, in that sense, it's very much cult like. It's very much a huge part of your life, and most of the people, for some of the people, everybody they know is in it, the family
Right.
and so on and so forth. So you have this, you're starting over, basically. You're starting over
Right.
in so many aspects of your life, and it's a challenge, but it's well worth it in every single way,
Absolutely.
because when you're
Absolutely.
when you're involved in the movement, you feel like you're basically at war with the world.
Yes.
Everybody around you, your entire, you wake up every single day, you're, fighting for the white race, or you just have this outlook where you're constantly on the defense. You're constantly battling something. It's not healthy. It's not a normal way to look at life. It's not a healthy way to look at life. So when you get out, yes, it can be a little bit of a struggle or an adjustment, but just as you had mentioned earlier, finding that thing to replace it.
Right.
For you, it was firefighting. For others, I know guys that have went into the MMA,
Sure.
different. There's all kinds of different things. It could be literally any. You could be joining a softball team.
Right.
It could,
Oh,
that could
absolutely.
be it.
Absolutely, man.
So for me, it was, at first, the first few months especially were really, really hard, because that was the period of time where I call it my decompression period,
Yes.
where your brain is just, you're processing all those things from the past, and you're beating yourself up over it, going, well, why did I do this?
Right.
How come I didn't see that? Why didn't I make this choice? And you're kind of, berating yourself, and you're carrying that
Oh
guilt and
yeah.
shame and all those different things. So when once you get past that, and of course, will always struggle with those different things, time and time
Absolutely.
again, but dwelling on them, or making that, dwelling on it too much, I think is unhealthy. It's not mentally healthy,
Right.
and uh, focusing on that. So for me, finding a new mission in life, because the movement was my mission. Obviously, it was the
Right.
wrong mission. Uh, it was really,
Right.
really wrong mission.
Right.
But doing the positive things that we do now with Beyond Barriers is a new mission for me, and it's something good. It actually helps people. It saves lives. It
Absolutely, it does.
prevents people from taking the path that we took. So
Right.
really happy.
So, if I may, what and I'll answer this question myself, and what led me into joining the movement and such. But yeah, what led Jeff into the arms of the movement?
For me, it was a fascination from a very, very young age. My grandfather fought in the German army and during World War II, and my great uncles did as well. My mother and family came over from Germany, and I want to preface that by saying they were not supportive of me being involved in the movement,
Sure.
but it was this fascination from a very young age that I had with history. I'm still fascinated with history, but at this young age, I was fascinated with the German history, the specifically the Nazi time period, and that's sort of what sent me down the path. You
Sure.
know, I don't want to the blame has to be placed on the individual. You can't say, well, it's so and so's fault or so and so had
Right. Right. Right.
trauma or all, you know, there's all these different things that are triggers that can help people to join the movement. But I don't want to place the blame on anybody, certainly not on my
Sure.
family members at all. But that's what got me interested in it. So
Sure.
I had this outlook where I was interested in it. I was fascinated by it, and unfortunately that led to wanting to join it, wanting to be involved in it here in the United States. And you know, that was the original path for me.
You
Now,
know, for me,
I was just going to say, how about you?
honestly, is rather similar, Jeff. At a young age, I was very fascinated with history. Still am. History is a great teacher. There's no question. Um, like you, I had a strong fascination with World War II history. It was my favorite subject in school. Um, and I did tend to side with the Nazi Party at the time, even though I knew nothing of what they were. It seemed fascinating to me that one person had all this power, if you will, that had all this stature, this grandeur, right? And so when I joined the movement full on, it was in the days of Yahoo Chat, so the internet was still not super young, but not as advanced as it is today. And I did a quick search, and that's how I found the NSM specifically. And in my life, I've made certain choices that prohibited certain activities. I wanted to be a Marine, and I was unable to. I was not qualified to be a Marine, and so I started getting just pissed off at the world. Really, I wanted to blame everybody else for my problems. Right, I wasn't ready to take accountability, and the NSM specifically painted a very pretty picture. You know, they had that rank and structure, that military, the uniforms, the militaristic feel, and that was the biggest appeal for me. Is like, man, maybe this is it. Maybe this is where I belong. And for years, I believed that. You know, and I was very active in trying to recruit people that were close to me. You know, and they fortunately they saw through my bullshit. um, you know, you made a very valid point earlier, and I want to circle back to that about not dwelling on things. And you know, for anyone that hears this, I hope that they understand that it's okay to recall and to remember to reflect. It's not okay to live there. If we forget our past, we're doomed to repeat it. And unfortunately, I see that happening all throughout our current current ways of the world. Okay, and it's unfortunate, but you know, to to not reflect or to not remember, it'd be asking a recovering alcoholic to never crave alcohol ever again. You know what I mean? But that's why we at Beyond Barriers are here, because we can help you through that. You know, um, uh, I feel like I've progressed more in just a few short months, a couple short months than I have in the entire time I've been out because of the support that I have. I know I can come and speak freely and voice concerns and things of that nature. And I'm not going to be judged, but I'm going to be given insight as to different approaches to certain sets of circumstances, and how to approach it, how to look at it from a different set of eyes, if you will. You know.
I
So
think
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's incredibly important because, and that's really, it's really awesome to hear too, because I think, I believe that having a group like Beyond Barriers where there's people that have walked that path before, and alcoholism's a good example. I mean, it's
Right.
obviously it's different, but it's a good
Right.
example. So like an alcoholic, talking to someone that's never had a drink in their life, that person can't understand what, they could read about
Right.
it all day long, but having not been an alcoholic, they might not understand it. This is a similar trajectory in what we do, and I think that's why we're so successful at what we do and in reaching other people, is because we
Right.
have been there, we understand that, and getting together and having this support network, I think is incredibly important, to work through those things. And you're right, exactly what you were saying about not living in those moments in the
Right.
past, but you do have to process it. There's a lot of people that
Yes.
that think, well, if I just don't think about it, then it's not there.
To
It's
to to
it's
truly
there.
move on, you do have to face it. And on a personal note, as somebody who has PTSD, if I don't face my trauma, right, I'll never heal, and then I'm not good for myself, let alone anyone else. As painful as it can be, and as crappy as it can be, it's encouraged. You know. So Jeff, you've been out. I think you said a couple years now.
Yep.
In today's political climate, there's extremes on both ends of the political spectrum, and it's been very out and blatant, shoved in our faces via the media. Uh, have has that presented, I guess, any issues on your current mission to reach out and to speak against extremism? How has what's happening in our current political climate affected or helped?
Well, we're in a situation right now in the country where extremism on both sides is a problem. And I think what a lot of people that even that work in the industry that work on countering extremism, they
Mm-hmm.
make a big mistake by trying to pick sides in that and saying, you need to think this way, like you need to think, they're not being, um they're not they're not being nonpartisan. They're
Right.
they're pushing their own side of things, and
Sure.
I do think that's incredibly negative. It's incredibly harmful, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna help. If you're trying
Right.
to reach somebody that's involved in this stuff and you're trying to get through to them and trying to help them understand by approaching them and telling them everything that they believe in is wrong, i-
Right.
for one, that's not gonna work.
Right.
They have to. You can. What we do is we're showing them alternative ways of looking at things.
Sure.
That way the individual is not saying like, I don't try to force my beliefs on anyone else. I'm
Right.
trying to offer them a different perspective. And I feel like most people will come to the conclusion and get to the place
Sure.
that we're at if they
Right.
allow themselves to see those things and be able to process it. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I think that a lot of people make, is they're trying to kind of force their beliefs on somebody
Right.
else, tell somebody that they're wrong, or picking sides. Of course we all have our own opinions. You can be on
Sure.
the right, you can be on the left. Just
Right.
don't jump into that extremist category where you're
Exactly.
doing violent things, or saying things that are harmful to others.
Right.
Either way, those are the areas you need to stay away from. But most of us are somewhere in the middle. They might be
Right.
sort of on the right or sort of on the left. That's okay. Just don't jump
Sure.
over that extremist category.
You're not wrong, and I can speak for myself, having conversation with a few folks that are involved with us here at Beyond Barriers, and having that open dialogue. Now, I believe that that open dialogue is something that will definitely help this country heal. But like you said, there's a lot of people that want to jump way far one way or way far to the other side, and realistically, it's detrimental. That's the word I'm looking for. The any claims that one thing over another is racist, or whatever the case may be, I think that's toxic speech that needs to stop, because really it's inhibiting that open dialogue that realistically can happen. I know there's things that I agree with that other people don't, but we're able to speak about them freely to one another because there's that level of respect. And and I think that's something, as people come out of any form of extremism, can definitely learn through us here at Beyond Barriers is, how to approach or how to handle certain topics. And the best part is even if they're not sure, we are a network, a mass network of people that can be like, hey, this is what has worked for me, or what, I heard from so and so, this is what worked for them. Here, let's get in contact with them. Let's see what we can do to help you prepare for some of these situations, because unfortunately, most of them are inevitable.
I have a good question for you.
Yeah, ask away.
So a lot of people that and this is, I think, is one that a lot of people want to hear how others think on it. So we're talking a little bit about some of the wrong ways to approach countering extremism. We talk a little bit about the right ways to approach it, and dialogue definitely is one of the right ways.
Absolutely.
So I've got a really good one for you. So there's people that it's a thing in the public where they say, punch a Nazi in the face. That's a big thing. How do you feel about that statement? And assuming you think it's a bad idea, why is it bad, or why is it good?
Okay. First and foremost, I will never condone any act of violence, period. Okay. Having said that, if somebody wanted to assume that because I'm a shaven head white man that they automatically assume that I'm a Nazi, and they decided to come try to punch me, I would obviously defend myself. It's not a smart idea, because you don't know who's packing heat and who's not. I mean, that's a good way to get injured. And why? Well, what's the point? I get it. You're disgusted with Nazism, and so am I. It's abhorrent. But why do you need to stoop to their level and be just as hateful and just as judgmental, thinking that that's going to do any good? What you're doing is you're adding fuel to their fire and driving that wedge of hate deeper. You're allowing them, essentially, you are giving them so much power over you that you're not accomplishing a damn thing, except for maybe some likes on social media, right? So while the sentiment is hilarious, much like the song Nazi Punks Fuck Off, I think it was Dead Kennedys that sing it, to stoop to the level of violent extremists, and to stoop to their level and become violent, perpetuating more violence, I think is an abhorrent idea, and quite frankly, it's rather disgusting. There are so many better and constructive ways to combat racism and hate and extremism, and I like to think that we here at Beyond Barriers are a good example of how we're combating, if you will, extremism of all kinds, not just white supremacy. And that's a very beautiful question. Wow. I don't think I have not yet had that question asked to me. But I don't advise anybody to engage in violence like that. Not only are you harming somebody who you don't know, but you're jeopardizing your own safety, and that's not cool, man. It's not smart. It's not safe. It's just you got to use some common sense. You really do.
Great answer, and I agree with you
Thank you.
100%, and I wanna amplify that as well. No one has ever left the movement by getting punched in the face, ever. And what it does, it might feel good for a half a second when you do it, but, as Red explained, it's not in your best interest, and you're not helping you're
Right.
not gonna reach that person. What that's doing is pushing that person farther back into, whatever form of extremism they're in, or that maybe that you never know, what if and I'm just gonna pose this
Sure.
as a statement, but what if that was somebody, we've left, and a lot of
Yeah.
we've helped a lot of people leave, and there's a lot of people that
Absolutely.
left before us as well. What if that was somebody that was on that fence, that was struggling with, maybe they shouldn't be involved in this
Right.
anymore, and then
Right.
that happened? I can tell you how I would react to it. Well,
Right.
first of all, I wouldn't just take it. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
in their
Right.
best interest. Second of all, that would have further incensed me into my belief system. It would have
Absolutely.
it was solidified that. It would have strengthened the belief that,
Yes.
hey, I'm just out here doing whatever I'm doing, whether it was protesting or just walking down the
Right.
street or whatever, and somebody came up and punched me. Oh well, now for me, typically I would do twice as much in
Yeah.
a response to that. It's dangerous,
It
but
is. It's
and
very
you
dangerous.
don't.
It's stupid.
Yeah,
Because yeah, you're going to hurt somebody physically, but you don't know what you're doing to their psyche. And physical wounds heal, but
right.
mental wounds, as most people know, are the absolute hardest to overcome. Uh, so here's a good question, I think, for both of us, and for really anybody who's been out for any amount of time. There's a disturbing trend in our current society where everything from mathematics to our highway systems to classical music and composure to uh, driving a pickup truck is all considered white supremacy. It's all considered white supremacy. What is your take um, uh, on that particular issue?
That's a great question, by the way, Red. This type of thinking, I believe, is extremist thought. When you start accusing random things like math or inanimate objects or things of that nature of being white supremacy, black supremacy, Asian
Mhm.
supremacy, this sort of thing, I think you've fallen down an extremist rabbit hole in its
Sure.
own sense. And I know that there's different schools of thought on this sort of thing, and
Right.
I know that, or I understand, excuse me, what they're saying. But and that brings up another question, and a thing I would like to cover as well,
Sure.
like
Hmm.
where there's a term that they use called dismantling whiteness.
Mm.
Okay. Let's this falls right in line with your question as well. When you start using terms like that, and I understand what they're saying, and I
Sure.
understand that. But we're not talking about that. But
Right.
when you use terms like that, that's going to trigger people. That's going to
Yes.
trigger people that have never been in the movement, that have
Right.
never even thought about joining a white supremacist movement,
Right.
that were not even racist in the first place. When that feeds into the extremist narratives that says,
Yes.
okay, if I'm white or whatever race is being targeted by such statements, or if I'm black, can you imagine if someone said we're going to dismantle blackness? Sorry, the color of your skin is how you were born. You didn't
Right.
have a choice in that, whether you were black, white, Asian. None of that should matter. We
Exactly.
should not be focusing on. We should focus on our humanity. That's what we all have in common. And I think
Exactly.
a lot of these studies and a lot of these programs and things like that that talk about things like that, I think for a number of the people that believe in that stuff, I think it's coming from a good place, that they think it's
Sure.
something positive, they think it's helpful, and they think it's uplifting. But uplifting, when you're uplifting people, all people should be uplifted.
Yes.
You're uplifting one or the other. It's really no, I mean, the movement says they're uplifting white people, and that's what it's all about. I mean, if
Right.
you flip it on, you could flip that any way, any other way. And if you're specifically uplifting one group of people, whether or one gender, I mean, we could,
Right.
or one religion,
Right.
uh, there's always people that are going to feel alienated. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Sure.
I don't want to play that game. What
Right.
I'm saying is this is how people feel. And when you start alienating people and you start leaving people out, it adds to those grievances. And I've heard it. I know
Right.
you have too.
Yeah, Jeff, I'd like to echo what you said, and really drive it home to folks that, when you start throwing color into everything, whether it's, hatred for one race or what have you, that is the textbook definition of racism. It really is. The fact is, Jeff, you said it better than what most people will even care to want to admit, and that is it's an extremist rabbit hole. So, Jeff, at Beyond Barriers, we do a lot. We reach out. We do a lot of different things, whether it's live streaming podcasts to interviewing a variety of folks, putting on educational forums, if you will. We speak to different organizations about why people join the movement, etc. If someone were to come to you right now and say, hey, you know what, I've been living this life for X amount of years, I see what you guys are doing, I love what you guys are doing, I'm ready to make that transition out of that life into something new, what would you recommend, not only to that person, but let's say they're married, or if they're close to their family, how would you or what would you recommend to them, and maybe even to their family?
Well, I mean, as far as searching for something else that they could put their energies into.
Yeah. Or like, so let's say maybe they don't want to become directly involved with Beyond Barriers, but they're ready to leave life of extremism and become a quote unquote normal human being.
That's a good question, and that's something else that I think we should, or that I'd like to mention as well, is most people, and this is for our listening audience. Most people, when they look at what we're doing and stuff, they think, well, only a few people. And I've had people say this to me. They said, well, not that many people do what you guys do. That not many people have left. And I always tell them, I said, I think you would be incredibly surprised how many people reach out to us and how many people have left. Very
Right.
few of us, as you know, but this is for the listening audience, very few of us will speak out about it because
Right.
it comes with its own baggage and its own stresses and things like that. And plus it's just, as men, it's just difficult to admit you were wrong and talk
Right.
about it and things like that. So very few of us that are actually speaking out. So most people, when they leave, to answer your question, most people when they leave, they're doing other things. They're going back to normal life, and they're
Right.
not doing what we do. So
Right.
that could be a whole, there's a whole array of different things that they could put themselves into. It could be whatever keeps them busy. But to lean on family, if your family's not involved, if they're to get back involved with your family, to repair damaged relationships from before you were involved in the movement, making new friends. There's all kinds of social things that people can do.
Sure.
There's things online, and I'm not advertising for this particular thing, but there's something called Meetup, or meetup.com or something like that, where you can see what local clubs and things are in your area. For example, they have, excuse me, like here in Detroit, they have things where you could go to different language classes, like a French
Oh,
meetup
wow.
or a Spanish meetup,
Okay.
all different things. Or you could
Sure.
go join a karate class, or things like that. There's all different things where you can go out there and meet people. You could join a church, or get back involved in whatever your preferred religion is.
Sure.
They have different networks and supports and things like that. So putting your energy towards something that's positive. A person could volunteer and go help feed the
Right.
homeless, or things like that too. There's so many things a person could volunteer for. um, there's just million different things you could do besides being involved in the movement, and you will make new friends, you'll make new
Absolutely.
connections, and it's not, your life isn't over. You're not I know a lot of people like to focus on the negative aspects, and a lot of the people that reach out to us will say, well, do people really forgive you? Do people really let you move on and stuff? And the answer to that is yes. Of course, there's always those I'm trying to think of a better word for a-holes, so I'm not cussing on, but I said there's
We'll
always
call them Klingons.
yeah, there's negative, just bad, just crappy people. There's
Absolutely.
those people out there that say, you know, once a Nazi, always a Nazi,
Ugh,
or and you know what I've found with just knowing people and in general, usually those people that are that negative, that don't want to look at somebody for who they are today
right.
instead of what they were in the past, are not very happy people, and they have
Sure.
pretty sad lives, so instead of being angry at those type of people, I almost feel like pity for them, like feel sorry for them, because
Sure.
it isn't easy always to change for people, and
Correct.
everybody's journey is a little different, and some struggle more than others, but
Yeah,
the good news is there's hope out there, there's help
there
out
is.
there, work is free,
Absolutely.
and the world is really, a good place. There's a lot of positive things you can do. How about you? What would you suggest for people?
You know, not just for the individual, but this is speaking directly to the families and to the loved ones of the individual or individuals leaving a life of extremism. I understand that you're going to be skeptic, and that's okay. What's not okay is to discredit them or continue to bury them in their past. All right. People, when someone is truly trying to change and become a better person, they are really seeking forgiveness. All right. And it is up to us as their loved ones to be there and be like, you know what? I may not have liked what you did or what you stood for, but you're my son, you're my daughter, you're my cousin. I love you. You're my son, you're my daughter, whatever the case may be. I probably said that twice, and I'm sorry, but the fact of the matter is show some compassion, show some love, and no, it's not easy. They're going to struggle, right? But you know, reassure them, hey, I'm here. You know, and one thing I definitely want to, Jeff, you hit on a topic uh, that more especially for men, it's hard for us to reach out when we need help. All right, and I am a very very strong advocate for mental health resources. All right, in fact, for our listening audience, if you visit our website www.beyondbarriersusa.org. You can find my contact info as the outreach coordinator for Beyond Barriers. Please email me, and I will do my best to help you find resources in your community for mental health issues and general health issues as well. But don't be afraid to reach out. I have no embarrassment or shame in admitting that I've been seeing a counselor for a multitude of years, and I can say with 100% certainty I would not be sitting in this situation talking to you guys had it not been for my counselors. It has been a blessing in disguise. It really has. And and if you don't want to talk to a counselor, there are those of us who have lived the life of extremism, and we have ears we're willing to listen in to help you walk through this transition in this journey. Even if it wasn't the same exact walk of life that we lived, you know what? We still understand extremism better than anybody who's only read about it because we lived it. We get it. So reach out. It's okay. That's what we're here for, man.
Well said. Really well said.
Everybody, I want to say on behalf of both myself and the rest of the staff here at Beyond Barriers, I want to give a heartfelt thank you for choosing to tune in tonight and to learn. This is nothing short of amazing what we do, and we will continue to put out material like this, but we can't do it without you. All right. check out www.beyondbarriersusa.org. Through our website, you will find a multitude of things. You'll find out our mission statement. You'll get to know who we are as our team. There's different news stories and articles that we post on there. And there's, of course, a media page that hosts links to our podcasts, okay? Not just the Beyond Barriers podcast, but Coffee and Conversation, which is done in conjunction with Underground Media. Also, hashtag The More You Know. And both those last two podcasts that were just mentioned, you'll get to see this shining face as a co-host on a fairly regular basis. We also have a contact page where you can reach out to us. I want to reassure anybody who is choosing to reach out to us, your communications, your information, anything you share with us is secure and confidential. We understand the importance of privacy, and it is one of our core values. So please be rest assured that you will not be exposed at any point during your interaction with us here at Beyond Barriers. There is a donate tab. I know times are tough during the pandemic for everybody. We would love to be able to continue to bring these shows, these podcasts, these Q&A events and everything else. We would really love to be able to continue to bring them to you. But like anything else, unfortunately, there is costs that are incurred. Please know that any donation that you are willing to give us is a tax deductible donation, as we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To those of you who are tuning in right now who may be on the fence on whether or not to leave the extremist side of life, I want to encourage you to reach out. Okay, it is okay to speak up. It's okay to be heard. It is okay to want to change, and we're here. We are here for you, and I can't stress that enough. And if you're listening in and you are struggling with mental health, okay, there are numerous ways to get that help. Okay, one of the key numbers that I'm going to encourage you to call is 1-800-273-8255. That is a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year suicide prevention hotline. Okay, you can also call your local law enforcement agency or go to your nearest emergency department where they have trained staff on hand 24/7 to help you through the raw moment in your life. Okay, but again, thanks everybody for tuning in.